When we play first e4, we're doing a couple of good things. One of those is that the bishop is active. And that means that whenever a black piece steps on one of these squares, we're going to be able to take it. And if you start taking like control over the board with your pieces and pawns, you're practically not going to allow the opponent to get anywhere. They're going to be just dropping pieces wherever they step. The same thing is being done for the queen. She's active. That means whatever steps on these squares, white's queen is going to collect it. Two pieces are getting better, doing e4. But then again, they say it's a good thing to actually control the center, to push pawns 2 squares ahead, not only one. And let's see, first of all, what's wrong with pushing the pawn only 1 square ahead. It's related with development of our other pieces, like the bishop on c1. If you'd be thinking of getting that bishop active along this diagonal, you'd see that after moving the d pawn, the e3 pawn is going to be our problem. And we just brought it there on the move 1. So thinking of other piece development, which we try to do, always in our openings phase, we'll be more prone to play e4. But this is also related with development of the opponent's pieces. If you put the pawn on e3, again, thinking of the opponent's development, you'll see that that pawn is not controlling f5 nor d5, and black can easily get their pieces there. While if you play e4, those squares are going to be under our control. You cannot imagine this black's bishop ever comes to f5, well, at least while the pawn is standing on e4. Playing this move e4 over some other move, less active, less advanced with the pawn, we're actually doing something against the opponent's piece's development. Now, we need to ask a question, like what we are going to be doing next in case black allows us to do even more about all these mentioned things, getting our pieces prepared better for the activity, for developing them, and also taking away places from the opponent's pieces, taking away the entire board if possible, but especially the central part of it, because the center is the most important for the activity of the opponent's pieces. Like whichever piece you put on one of these squares that I highlighted, that piece would be controlling really a lot. So if they allow us, we're going to be pushing d4 on our next move and getting a lot of control over the 5th rank, which is the opponent's camp. So black is going to be forced to stay on the 6th. For that reason, black is going to do e5, trying to get the equal amount of space on the board, not to place a pawn on the path of another piece that they have. And of course, as we said before, it wants to activate the bishop and the queen, same way as we did. Now, in front of white are a couple of questions. One question is, should we do something with the pawn again, or with our pieces? One of the most important things in the opening to understand and to always remember is that we do not want to play plenty of moves with the pawns in the opening, because our pieces are going to be still on the 1st rank, which means they're not going to be that active. They're not going to be controlling that many squares. For example, you look at this knight on g1 and b1. Let's start with the g1. You can see that from g1, it's controlling only 3 squares. The other knight also, a3, c3, and d2. What we want to do about these pieces is to get them closer to the center so they get greater number of squares. And that means the opponent is not going to be able to use those squares for their pieces. It would be better to get a knight out to f3 for the g1 and c3 for the b1. Question may be, why wouldn't we go with these knights to the side or in front of the king, for example, for this knight? Well, first of all, if you put a knight on the side, they say the knight on the rim is dim because it's controlling 4 squares only. Previously, it was even worse, controlling only 3. On the rim of the board, it will be controlling 1 square more, which means that it makes more sense to have it here than on g1. But when you compare that square with the one on f3, well, basically it's uncomparable, because from f3 it's controlling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So that means that, mathematically speaking even, the f3 square should be definitely better than h3. What about e2? It doesn't control the same number of squares as from f3, but also it's blocking the way of the bishop and the queen. So the knight wants to be here, and the other knight wants to be there, obviously. Question is, which one of these two knights should go first? Well, it depends on another thing, another important thing in the opening phase that we'd like to take care of, and that's the king. And you do want to move the king away from the center, because you can see the pawn on e4 means the king is a little bit exposed. You may not feel like that comfortable. Okay, at this point it's fine, but at some point soon it may be like really risky to keep it in the center. You know, black is going to open the center, let's say eventually with this, or we're going to be opening the center with that, and then the king feels even more exposed. So what we want to do is to move this king behind our pawns that are not going to be moving. We can castle, and the king is going to be standing behind his pawns. 3 pawns are just going to be perfect to create a shield in front of the king. Now, if we'd be moving the other knight to c3, that would not help us castling. So it's not going to be a bad idea that much, or it's not bad at all, but it's basically not taking care of the king as much as knight f3. So we should favor knight f3 over knight c3. Now, how about the bishop? If we put it here, it's not great. It's basically blocking the queen. Put it here, it's blocking the pawn, and that means blocking the bishop. Really bad. And it's not really increasing the number of squares it controls. So what about c4? If we put the bishop on c4, it's basically attacking the weakest spot of black, and that's the pawn on f7, well-known weakness. And we are not going to go bishop b5 because it's not doing anything there, because, you know, they can just kick it away with c6 and even grab control over the center. So if we'd be going somewhere with this f1 bishop, it would be certainly the square c4. And it's not a bad idea. It's just like saying that you should go with the knights first and then the bishops. And that's for a good reason. Well, for example, if you'd be waiting for black to do something like knight c6, then you may be thinking of placing the bishop on b5, and it wouldn't be that bad. It may be taking the knight even on c6. So if you'd be waiting for that knight to come there, you may open yourself an option to place the bishop even here, not only on c4. This extra option that you can allow yourself to have is going to be achieved by waiting with the bishop on f1 a little bit longer and developing a thing that anyway wants to get to that square. So you'd like to do that thing anyway, either with the bishop standing on c4 or wherever a bishop goes. And that's why they say develop your knights before bishops, because the knights are going to be, well, easy to tell where they should be going. Because, you know, you cannot compare h3 with f3, nor e2 with f3. So we go with this move because it's the optimal, by far, optimal square for the knight, waiting to see what black is going to do, and then keeping this option of the bishop. And more than that, we are also clearing this path for the king, as we said. But there is one more extra thing the knight is doing here. It's attacking the pawn on e5. And that means not that we are hoping that the opponent is going to blunder, but we are actually forcing them to defend that pawn. They're not going to just play whatever they want. They're going to be forced to do something about that pawn. And that's a good thing, you know. We're kind of taking away some options from them. We're kind of forcing them into certain things that they need to do. So here, black, for example, cannot really feel like they can do whatever they want. They'd be forced to defend his pawn. How can they do that? They push the pawn to d6. It's defending the pawn on e5, but the bishop on f8 is going to be complaining. They put the queen in front here or here, it's going to be blocking either the knight or the bishop. If they put a bishop on d6, a bishop from f8, then it's going to be defending the pawn, clearing the way for the king to castle. Although the bishop is not going to be more active than before, it's going to be controlling the same number of squares. It's going to be bad for the one behind, because there is not going to be easy d6, and the bishop is not going to be seeing a light of day anytime soon. So basically, they're going to be doing something that is anyway part of their plan, but at the same time protect the pawn, and that's the knight c6 move. And now it's our turn. We're going to try to force them again to be defensive again. At the same time, I don't want you to forget do not forget to develop your pieces. But if possible, develop them with a certain initiative, which means you develop and attack something if possible. Develop and attack again. Force the opponent to be always reactive. I attack you, you defend. I attack you and still doing something good for myself, and you're defending and maybe not doing that much great for yourself. So the move that can do that, it's going to be related with the idea of attacking the pawn indirectly, because it's defended by the knight on c6. However, if you remove the knight, the pawn falls. So you're thinking of castling, so you're thinking of your king, first of all. You're thinking of your development, the bishop needs to go. And at the same time, you're thinking of putting pressure on the opponent's pawn. All that can be done by placing the bishop to b5. This is how we get the Spanish opening, or so-called Ruy Lopez. So black is going to now be, again, reactive, thinking of how to defend the pawn on e5. They don't want to play d6 again because this bishop on f8 is going to be complaining. Maybe they don't even need to defend this. Maybe there is a tactical way to solve that problem. But that's another story. We're not going to go that deep at the moment. Well, there are other ways and other logic like behind the next possibility, like other possibilities of white. For example, if you put the bishop here, it's making the bishop even more active than on b5. It's not threatening to take the knight and take the pawn on e5, but it's based on another idea that this pawn on f7 is defended only by the black's king, and thus it is known as the biggest weakness in the black's camp. Just imagine the queen getting there of white. It's going to be a mate, or a knight by a g5 to f7, damaging greatly black's position. These are the moves that white can go for and clear the way at the same time for the king to castle, and then start thinking of opening the game and exploiting maybe development advantage if there is going to be one. There is also a way to try to get immediately the game open with d4, getting the bishop active, basically that's behind it. And also a very important thing and strategy behind this move is that we are going to eliminate the black's pawn from the center. The only pawn that black has in the center is going to be gone after they take on d4. So we're kind of saying, you know what, I did something good for my bishop. It's going to be active now. I'm taking away the squares from you. I'm also bringing my knight to the center even. It's controlling the same number of squares, but it's more into the center, making it better. But the most important thing is that the pawn of black is gone. So they put it in the center in order to control some squares like f4 and d4. And now you see what happened. The knight got to the d4 square. And this bishop can go to, if we want to put it there, to f4 freely. However, there is a problem with this d4 as well, because we are not doing anything in order to develop other pieces. We're not developing the bishop, clearing a way for the king. We're not developing this knight. We're playing one more move with the pawn, and that's not that great. Well, it's hard to say. It's hard to measure in which case actually we get more. In case of d4, in case of bishop c4, or in case of bishop b5. But I can tell you that all of these, like these three options that white has, are known to be the best options for white in the given position.